Bride forced to clean bathroom on wedding day. But groom shows up and... Ashley Taylor never imagined the most important day of her life would turn into one of the most humiliating experiences she could ever endure. The tears streaming down her face mixed with sweat from exertion as she scrubbed the toilet in the most luxurious bathroom of Wellington Hall, one of the most prestigious event spaces in New York City. The order had come directly from her future mother-in-law, Beatrice Wellington, an influential real estate businesswoman who controlled half the developments in the Upper West Side of the city. With yellow rubber gloves slipping on her trembling hands, Ashley obeyed the demand of the woman who in just a few minutes would officially become her mother-in-law. The condition was clear. The wedding would only happen if she proved herself worthy of the Wellington family by cleaning every bathroom in the hall. "That's right, dear. Scrub that corner well," said Beatrice, watching every movement with cruel satisfaction. A real woman isn't afraid of hard work. The bridesmaids and groomsmen, all friends from New York high society, watched the scene with a mixture of shock and amusement. Some whispered among themselves, others discreetly took photos with their cell phones. Ashley felt the weight of every gaze but kept her head down, focused on finishing the task. "Aunt B, this isn't right," murmured Olivia, younger sister of Ethan, the groom. "How could anyone do this to Ashley today of all days?" "Be quiet, Olivia, or you'll be next to lose your inheritance," replied Beatrice without taking her eyes off her daughter-in-law. "This girl needs to understand her place in this family." Ashley swallowed another tear and continued her task. The wedding dress, a vintage piece that had belonged to her late grandmother, was beginning to show stains from the cleaning products. It was the only valuable thing she owned, and now it was being ruined. But she couldn't stop. Ethan was the love of her life, and there was nothing she wouldn't do for him. The sound of the bathroom door opening made everyone turn. It was Mrs. Eleanor, a white-haired lady Ashley recognized among the guests. The woman looked at the scene with growing indignation. "What is this nonsense, Beatrice?" said the lady with a firm voice. "How dare you do this to the young lady on her wedding day?" Beatrice turned with a fake smile. "Eleanor, dear, Ashley volunteered to help with the cleaning. Isn't that right, my dear?" Ashley raised her eyes and met Mrs. Eleanor's gaze. There was something familiar in those kind eyes, something that stirred a distant memory, but she just nodded her head and returned to work. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing." "Beatrice, do you know who this young lady is?" asked Mrs. Eleanor, approaching. "Do you know where she comes from?" "I know perfectly well." "A poor girl who managed to fool my son with her beauty," replied Beatrice with disdain. "That's exactly why she needs to prove she deserves to be here." Ashley closed her eyes for a moment, trying to control the pain in her chest. Her mother-in-law's words echoed in her mind, but she knew she had to endure it. Ethan was worth all this suffering. 15 minutes passed when Father Michael appeared at the bathroom door, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Mrs. Wellington, the guests are asking when the ceremony will begin. It's already 6:15 in the evening," he said, avoiding looking directly at Ashley. "Father, we'll only begin when she finishes cleaning all the bathrooms in the hall," replied Beatrice firmly. "There are 4 total. 3 still remain." The priest shook his head, clearly displeased. "Mrs. Wellington, with all due respect, this isn't right. The young lady is the bride, not an employee." "Father Michael, I'm the one who pays for your church every month," said Beatrice with a threatening tone. "I suggest you only worry about celebrating the ceremony when I say it's time." Ashley felt her legs tremble. The reality of the situation was beginning to weigh on her. Where was Ethan? Why wasn't he showing up to defend her? Did he know what his mother was doing? Mrs. Eleanor approached and knelt beside Ashley. "Dear, let me help you," she whispered. "No, please," Ashley replied softly. She said if anyone helped me, she would call off the wedding. "But child, you don't have to go through this. No woman should be humiliated like this," the lady insisted. Ashley looked into the older woman's eyes, and something clicked in her memory. Those kind eyes, that gentle voice. She had seen that lady before. But where? "Did you work at Mercy General Hospital?" Ashley asked quietly. Mrs. Eleanor was surprised. "Work? Dear, I own Mercy General Hospital." "Why?" The revelation hit Ashley like a bolt of lightning. She knew exactly who that woman was now. 5 years ago, when she worked as a cleaner at the hospital, she had found a lady passed out in the third-floor bathroom. Ashley had given first aid and called for help, saving the life of the woman who had suffered a severe episode of low blood pressure. You fainted in the third-floor bathroom on March 15th, 5 years ago," whispered Ashley. Mrs. Eleanor's eyes widened. "How do you know that? I never found out who discovered me that day. The doctors said someone saved me, but when I woke up, it was me," said Ashley with tears in her eyes. "I was cleaning the bathroom when I found you unconscious. I loosened your clothes, propped up your legs, and called for help." The revelation left Mrs. Eleanor in shock. The woman who had saved her life was right there, being humiliated on her wedding day. She looked at Beatrice with growing anger. "Beatrice Wellington, you don't know what you're doing," said Mrs. Eleanor, standing up. "This young lady saved my life." "What is this story, Eleanor?" asked Beatrice, starting to get annoyed. 5 years ago, I had a serious episode at the hospital. If it weren't for this young lady, I would have passed away. And you are humiliating my savior," declared Mrs. Eleanor firmly. Beatrice shook her head disdainfully. "What a convenient coincidence, don't you think? This girl is trying to play the victim now." Ashley continued cleaning, trying to ignore the argument. She didn't want her story to seem like a lie. All that mattered was being able to marry Ethan. At that moment, the bathroom door opened again, and Ethan finally appeared. His tuxedo was impeccable, but his face showed confusion at the scene. "Mother, what's going on here?" he asked, looking at Ashley in yellow gloves. "Why is Ashley cleaning?" "My son, your bride offered to help with the final touches at the hall," Beatrice lied smoothly. "A very noble gesture, don't you think?" Ethan looked at Ashley, who kept her head down. He knew his bride well enough to sense something was wrong. "Ashley, what's happening?" "She's proving she's worthy of our family," said Beatrice before Ashley could respond. "A real woman isn't afraid of work." "Mother, she's the bride, not an employee," said Ethan, beginning to understand the situation. "Exactly what I said," murmured Father Michael. Beatrice turned to her son with threatening eyes. "Ethan, you need to understand that this girl comes from a very different world than ours. If she wants to be part of this family, she needs to show humility." "Humility or humiliation?" asked Ethan, the anger beginning to show in his voice. "Don't be dramatic, son. It's just a few bathrooms," said Beatrice, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Ethan looked at Ashley, who finally raised her eyes to him. In that moment, he saw all the pain and humiliation she was feeling. His heart broke when he realized his own mother was responsible for it. "Ashley, you don't have to do this," he said, approaching. "Ethan, if I don't finish, she'll cancel our wedding," whispered Ashley with a choked voice. "She'll what?" Ethan turned to his mother furiously. "Mum, you can't do that." "I can and I will. This girl needs to understand her place," replied Beatrice coldly. It was then that Mrs. Eleanor decided to intervene again. "Beatrice, you should know that this young lady isn't just any cleaning woman." "What do you mean by that?" asked Ethan. 5 years ago, Ashley saved my life at Mercy General Hospital. She was in charge of supervising cleaning for the entire hospital," revealed Mrs. Eleanor. "She wasn't a simple cleaner, she was an executive." The revelation dropped like a bomb in the bathroom. Ethan looked at Ashley in surprise. "Ashley, you never told me you were a supervisor," he said. I didn't think it was important," she replied, going back to cleaning. "How was it not important?" insisted Ethan. Ashley stopped what she was doing and turned to him. "Because when I met you, you made me feel like I was special for who I was, not for what I did. I didn't want you to be interested in me because of my position." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "But Ashley, why did you leave everything?" asked Mrs. Eleanor. Ashley took a deep breath before answering. "Because I fell in love. And when you truly love someone, you're willing to start over to build a life together with that person." Ashley's words touched Ethan deeply. He finally understood the magnitude of the sacrifice she had made for him. "Mum, are you hearing this?" Ethan said to Beatrice. "She left a successful career for me." "And it was a foolish decision," replied Beatrice without hesitation. "It proves she doesn't know how to make smart choices." Ethan felt the anger growing inside him. "Mom, she did it for love of me." "Love doesn't pay bills, Ethan," said Beatrice coldly. "Our family has enough money for several generations," retorted Ethan. "It's not about money. It's about class, son. About knowing your place in the world," insisted Beatrice. Ashley finished cleaning the first bathroom and stood up, her legs aching. "Where is the next bathroom?" she asked softly. "Ashley, no," said Ethan, holding her arm. "You're not cleaning anything else." "Then there will be no wedding," declared Beatrice. "Mom, you're being ridiculous," said Ethan. "Ridiculous?" Beatrice turned to him angrily. "Ridiculous is you wanting to marry a woman who isn't on our level." "On our level?" Ethan was losing his patience. "Mom, do you hear what you're saying? I'm being realistic. This girl will be a burden on our family," said Beatrice. Mrs. Eleanor could no longer stay silent. "Beatrice Wellington, I've known you for 20 years. When your husband passed away and you were left with debts, I was the one who helped you rebuild your business. And now you're humiliating a woman on her wedding day?" "Eleanor, this is none of your business," replied Beatrice. "Of course it is. This young lady saved my life. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be here today to give you a lesson in humanity," said Mrs. Eleanor firmly. Ethan looked at Ashley, who had started to take off her gloves. "Ashley, what are you doing?" "Taking off the gloves," she said in a different voice, firmer. "If your mother wants to know who I really am, then she will know." Ashley pulled off the gloves and showed her hands. The palms were marked by old scars, signs of years of hard work. "These scars tell my story," she said, looking directly at Beatrice. "Each one of them represents a battle I won to get here." "Ashley," Ethan whispered, gently touching her hands. "I started working when I was 12, Ethan. My parents died in an accident, and I went to live with an aunt who could barely support herself," Ashley continued. "By 15, I was already working 3 different jobs to pay for my studies." Beatrice listened in silence, but her face showed no compassion. "By 22, I managed to graduate in business administration by studying at night. By 25, I was already the cleaning supervisor at the largest hospital in New York City," Ashley said with pride. "I built my life with these hands." "And why did you give it all up?" asked Beatrice, trying to sound indifferent. "Because I met your son, and for the first time in my life, I felt I could have a real family," Ashley replied emotionally. "I thought I would finally have someone who would love me for who I am, not for what I have." Ethan felt his eyes welling up. He had never fully understood what Ashley had sacrificed for him. "But I was wrong," Ashley continued, looking directly at Beatrice. "Because even after giving up everything, I'm still not good enough for your family." "Ashley, don't say that," said Ethan. "It's the truth, Ethan. Your mother is right. I don't belong in this world," said Ashley, starting to remove the veil. "What are you doing?" asked Ethan in panic. "I'm freeing myself," Ashley replied. "I'm stopping trying to be someone I'm not to please people who will never accept me." Ethan held Ashley's hands. "Ashley, you can't give up now. I love you." "I love you too, Ethan, but love isn't enough when one of the families doesn't accept the union," she said with tears in her eyes. "Ashley, wait," said Mrs. Eleanor. "Don't let prejudice defeat love." "Mrs. Eleanor, you are very kind, but I can't go through this anymore," Ashley replied. It was at that moment that Olivia, Ethan's sister, entered the bathroom. "Guys, what's going on? The guests are asking if there's going to be a wedding or not." "There isn't," said Ashley, handing the veil to Olivia. "What do you mean there isn't?" asked Olivia, not understanding. "Your mother imposed humiliating conditions for the wedding to happen," explained Ethan. Olivia looked at her mother with indignation. "Mom, what did you do?" "I just tested whether she really loves your brother," replied Beatrice. "Tested?" Olivia was outraged. "Mom, you're being cruel." "I'm being practical," insisted Beatrice. "Practical is accepting that your son chose a wonderful woman," said Olivia. "I've lived with Ashley for 2 years, Mom. She is the kindest person I know." Kindness doesn't pay the bills, repeated Beatrice. Mum, you're being ridiculous, said Olivia. Ethan has enough money to support an entire family. It's not about money, it's about status, said Beatrice. Status? Ethan could no longer control himself. Mom, status is what a person builds with their character, not their bank account. You're very naive, son, said Beatrice. Naive is you thinking you can control other people's lives, retorted Ethan. Ashley headed for the door. I'm leaving. I don't want to be the cause of arguments in this family anymore. Ashley, don't do this, begged Ethan. Ethan, your mother made it very clear that I'm not welcome here, said Ashley. I won't fight this anymore. But I want you here, said Ethan. It's not enough, replied Ashley. A family needs to accept their son's wife. If that doesn't happen, the marriage is doomed to fail. Mrs. Eleanor stepped between Ashley and the door. Dear, you saved my life. Let me save yours now. How so? Asked Ashley. Don't let one person's pride destroy your happiness, said Mrs. Eleanor. Sometimes we need to fight for what we love. I've already fought enough, said Ashley tiredly. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. But you haven't told the whole truth yet, said Mrs. Eleanor mysteriously. What truth? Asked Ethan. Mrs. Eleanor looked at Ashley. Tell them about the project you were developing before you met Ethan. Ashley looked surprised. How do you know about that? Because I was investing in it, revealed Mrs. Eleanor with a smile. The revelation left everyone in silence. Ethan looked at Ashley for an explanation. Ashley, what project was that? He asked. Ashley hesitated before answering. It was a support center for working women, a place where single mothers could leave their children while they worked with daycare, tutoring, and job training. Why did you never tell me about this? Asked Ethan. Because when I met you, I thought it wouldn't be important, she replied. I thought you would want a wife dedicated only to the family. Ashley, I fell in love with you exactly for your determination and strength, said Ethan. Why did you hide this from me? Because I was afraid you would think I was too ambitious, she admitted. Mrs. Eleanor addressed Beatrice. Beatrice, you're humiliating a woman who gave up $1 million project for love of your son. Doesn't that tell you anything about her character? Beatrice remained silent, but for the first time seemed to be reflecting. What $1 million project? Asked Ethan. The center she was developing already had 5 investors, including me, explained Mrs. Eleanor. Her project could have generated millions in 5 years. Ethan looked at Ashley with admiration and disbelief. Ashley, you gave all that up for me. For us, she corrected. I thought we were building a life together. But we are, said Ethan. Why didn't you resume the project after we met? Because I thought you wouldn't approve, she said honestly. Ashley, I would be proud to have an entrepreneurial wife, said Ethan. Why did you think otherwise? Ashley looked at Beatrice before answering. Because your mother always made it clear that she expected a daughter-in-law dedicated only to the home. Ethan turned to his mother. Mom, is this true? Beatrice didn't answer immediately. She was beginning to realize that she had judged Ashley completely wrong. Mom, answer, insisted Ethan. I just wanted to make sure she truly loved you, said Beatrice, finally showing some vulnerability. And making her clean bathrooms was your way of testing that? Asked Ethan incredulously. I thought if she really loved you, she would do anything, admitted Beatrice. Mom, humiliating someone isn't a test of love, it's cruelty, said Ethan. Mrs. Eleanor approached Beatrice. Beatrice, you have a daughter. How would you feel if on her wedding day her mother-in-law humiliated her like this? The question hit Beatrice hard. She looked at Olivia and for the first time imagined her daughter in Ashley's position. I would kill anyone who did that to Olivia, Beatrice admitted quietly. Then why are you doing this to Ashley? Asked Mrs. Eleanor gently. Beatrice didn't know how to answer. For the first time she was seeing herself as the villain of the story. Ashley, said Beatrice finally, perhaps I was too harsh. Perhaps. Ethan couldn't contain himself. Mother, you were cruel. Ethan, let your mother speak, requested Ashley. Beatrice took a deep breath. I was afraid that you were only interested in the family's money. And for that you humiliated me? Asked Ashley. I know it was wrong, admitted Beatrice, but I've been deceived before. Ethan's first boyfriend was only interested in our fortune. Mother, that was 10 years ago, said Ethan. And Brandon was a man. It has nothing to do with Ashley. I know, said Beatrice. But when you're rich, there are always people trying to take advantage. Mrs. Wellington, said Ashley calmly, if I wanted to take financial advantage of Ethan, I wouldn't have given up my own business. The logic was irrefutable. Beatrice was finally seeing the situation clearly. You're right, admitted Beatrice. I made a terrible mistake. Not just a mistake, Mother. You were cruel to the woman I love, said Ethan. Ethan, I apologize, said Beatrice, addressing him. And Ashley, I apologize to you as well. Ashley looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Wellington, I accept your apology, but that doesn't change the fact that you don't accept me into this family. Perhaps I can change that, said Beatrice hesitantly. How? Asked Ethan. Beatrice looked around the bathroom, seeing the yellow gloves on the floor, Ashley's stained dress, and finally understanding the gravity of what she had done. Let me clean the rest of the bathrooms, said Beatrice suddenly. Everyone looked at her in shock. Mother, what are you saying? Asked Ethan. If humiliation was good enough for Ashley, it's good enough for me, said Beatrice, picking up the gloves from the floor. Mrs. Wellington, you don't have to do this, said Ashley. Yes, I do, insisted Beatrice. I need to understand what it's like to be treated the way I treated you. Ethan watched his mother put on the yellow gloves with disbelief. Mother, are you sure? I am, said Beatrice, kneeling beside the toilet. Perhaps this way I'll understand that a person's true worth isn't in their background, but in their character. Ashley watched the scene in silence. Part of her felt satisfaction seeing Beatrice in the same humiliating position, but another part felt sorry for the older woman. Mrs. Wellington, stop, said Ashley after a few minutes. Why? Asked Beatrice, stopping her scrubbing. Because humiliating you won't solve anything, said Ashley. Two humiliated people don't make a situation better. Beatrice looked at her with surprise. Even after all I've done, you still show compassion. It's who I am, Ashley replied simply. Ethan approached Ashley and held her hands. Ashley, do you forgive me for not stopping this? Ethan, you didn't know what was happening, she said. I should have suspected when my mother insisted I arrive late, he admitted. You did this on purpose? Asked Ethan of his mother. Beatrice lowered her head in shame. I did. I wanted time to test her. Mother, how could you? Ethan was outraged. Son, I know I was wrong, said Beatrice, removing the gloves, but I want to fix this. How? Asked Ashley. Beatrice thought for a moment before answering. Resume your project. I will fund it. How? Asked Ashley, surprised. Your support center for working women. I want to invest in it, said Beatrice. Why? Asked Ethan. Because today I found a woman who gave up her dreams for love, said Beatrice, looking at Ashley. And that deserves to be rewarded. Ashley fell silent, processing the proposal. Mrs. Wellington, are you doing this out of guilt? She asked. I'm doing it because I recognize the value of what you are building, Beatrice replied, and because I want my son to marry a woman who has her own dreams. Ethan looked at Ashley. What do you think? I need to think, said Ashley. Of course, said Beatrice. But first, let's settle the matter of the wedding. What matter? Asked Ethan. Whether it's still happening, said Beatrice. After everything I've done, I don't know if I deserve to be at the ceremony. Ashley looked at Ethan, then at Beatrice, and finally at Mrs. Eleanor, who had silently observed the entire conversation. The wedding will happen, Ashley finally said. Are you sure? Asked Ethan. I am, but with one condition, she said. What? Asked Beatrice. That from today on no one ever questions my place in this family again, Ashley said firmly. Agreed, Ethan said immediately. Mother! Ethan looked at Beatrice. Agreed, she said, extending her hand to Ashley. Ashley looked at the outstretched hand for a moment before shaking it. Now let's get ready for the wedding, said Olivia, who had watched the entire reconciliation. Father Michael must be going crazy out there. "Wait," said Mrs. Eleanor. "Before we go, I want to make a proposal." "What proposal?" asked Ethan. "I want to be the first official investor in Ashley's new project," she said. "Mrs. Eleanor, you've already done so much for me," said Ashley. "Nonsense," said the lady. "You saved my life. The least I can do is help you save the lives of other women." "Then it's settled," said Beatrice. "We'll be partners in the project." "Partners?" asked Ashley. "You as the manager, me and Eleanor as investors," Beatrice explained. "If you accept, of course." Ashley looked around the bathroom where she had been humiliated just an hour before and was now receiving business proposals. "I accept," she said with a smile. "Great," said Ethan. "Now can we get married?" "We can," replied Ashley, kissing him. "But first you need to change," said Olivia. "Your dress is stained." "I brought a spare dress," said Mrs. Eleanor. "It was in my car for emergencies." "You brought a spare wedding dress?" asked Ethan. "Dear, when you reach my age, you learn to be prepared for any situation," replied Mrs. Eleanor with a smile. Everyone laughed, and for the first time since arriving at the hall, Ashley felt she truly belonged to that family. 30 minutes later, Ashley was radiant in a wedding dress even more beautiful than the previous one. Beatrice had insisted on helping her get ready, and the two had discussed the details of the project during the preparations. "Are you sure you forgive me?" asked Beatrice as she adjusted Ashley's veil. "I'm sure," replied Ashley. "Everyone deserves a second chance." "Thank you," said Beatrice, kissing her daughter-in-law's forehead. The ceremony was held in the main hall, with all the guests finally gathered. Father Michael, visibly relieved, conducted the ceremony with renewed enthusiasm. When it came time for the vows, Ethan looked into Ashley's eyes and said, "Ashley, you taught me that true love is about accepting and being accepted. I promise I will never let anyone question your place by my side again." Ashley, with tears of happiness in her eyes, replied, "Ethan, you taught me that love is worth fighting for. I promise I will always be honest about my dreams and ambitions, because we build our life together." When the priest declared them husband and wife, the guests burst into applause. Beatrice was in the front row, applauding with tears in her eyes. During the reception, Mrs. Eleanor approached Ashley. "How do you feel, dear?" she asked. "Like I've been reborn," replied Ashley. "Thank you for helping me not give up. You saved my life once. Today was my turn to return the favor," said Mrs. Eleanor. "And what about the project?" asked Ashley. "We start on Monday," said Mrs. Eleanor. "I already have a plot of land in mind." Ashley smiled, finally feeling her life was complete. She had found not only love, but also the opportunity to resume her dreams. Later, during the newlyweds' waltz, Ethan whispered in Ashley's ear, "Do you know what makes me proudest of you?" "What?" she asked. "That even after everything that happened today, you still chose forgiveness," he said. "Forgiveness frees the one who forgives more than the one who is forgiven," replied Ashley. "Where did you learn that?" asked Ethan. "From life," she answered, smiling. As they danced, Beatrice watched the couple from the main table. Olivia approached her mother. "Mom, you did the right thing in the end," she said. "I almost destroyed your brother's marriage," replied Beatrice. "But you didn't. And now you have a daughter-in-law who will make our family better," said Olivia. "How so?" asked Beatrice. "Her project will help hundreds of women. Our family will be remembered for something much bigger than money," explained Olivia. Beatrice smiled, finally understanding the true value of what she had almost lost. At the end of the evening, as guests began to leave, Ashley approached Beatrice. "Mrs. Wellington, may I speak with you?" "Of course, dear," replied Beatrice. "I want you to know I hold no grudge for what happened today," said Ashley. "How can you?" asked Beatrice. "I was terrible to you." "Because I understand you acted out of love for Ethan," replied Ashley. "A mother protects her children the best way she knows how." "But I protected him the wrong way," admitted Beatrice. "Yes, but the intention was good," said Ashley. "And now we can start fresh." Beatrice hugged Ashley. "Thank you for giving me this chance." "Thank you for accepting that I deserve to be part of this family," replied Ashley. When Ethan approached the two, he found his mother and his wife embracing. "Is everything all right here?" he asked. Better than all right, replied Ashley. We're making plans for the future. What plan? Asked Ethan. The centre will be called Hope Foundation, said Beatrice, and your wife will be the executive director. Ethan looked at Ashley with pride. Do you accept? On one condition, said Ashley. What? Asked Ethan and Beatrice together. That you let me work without interfering, she replied, smiling. Promised, said Ethan. Agreed, said Beatrice. 2 years later, the Hope Foundation had become a reference for supporting working women in New York City. Ashley had developed training programs, full-time daycare, and even a microcredit center for women entrepreneurs. Beatrice had become not only the main investor, but also an active volunteer at the Institute. The relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had evolved into a true partnership. Ethan watched his wife's success with pride and often told friends he had married the most extraordinary woman in New York City. On the Institute's 2nd anniversary, during the celebration ceremony, Ashley took the stage to speak. 2 years ago on my wedding day, I learned a valuable lesson, she began. I learned that our worth is not determined by where we come from, but by where we're going. The audience applauded, and Beatrice, seated in the front row, smiled with pride. I also learned that sometimes people test us not out of cruelty, but out of fear, continued Ashley. And that true character is revealed not when we are tested, but when we forgive those who tested us. Ethan, standing beside Beatrice, held his mother's hand. Today, the Hope Foundation serves over 500 families, said Ashley. And this was only possible because 2 very special women believed in me when I had already given up on myself. Mrs. Eleanor, now 80 years old, stood up and waved to Ashley. Mrs. Eleanor, who saved my emotional life, said Ashley, and Beatrice, who became not just my mother-in-law, but my partner in the mission to transform lives. Beatrice stood up, moved, and walked onto the stage. She hugged Ashley and took the microphone. 2 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life, she said. I almost lost the chance to have the best daughter-in-law a mother could wish for. The audience fell silent, absorbing every word. Ashley taught me that family isn't about blood or money, Beatrice continued. It's about accepting and being accepted. It's about building something bigger than ourselves. She looked at Ashley. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for teaching me what truly matters in life. The audience burst into applause, and many people in the crowd were crying. And now, said Beatrice, I am pleased to announce that the Hope Foundation will receive a donation of 10 million Rs to expand its activities. Ashley was in shock. Mrs. Wellington, what are you saying? I'm saying you deserve to have the resources to dream even bigger, replied Beatrice. Ethan stepped onto the stage and hugged the 2 most important women in his life. You are amazing, he said, both of you. Later, during the celebration, Ashley stepped away from the crowd and went to a window overlooking the Institute's garden. Ethan found her there. What are you thinking about? He asked. I'm thinking about how life can change in a moment, she replied. 2 years ago, I was cleaning a bathroom, humiliated and ready to give up on everything. And now? Asked Ethan. Now I'm running an institute that helps hundreds of women. I'm married to the man I love, and I have a mother-in-law who has become my best business partner, she said, smiling. Don't you think that's too much of a coincidence? Asked Ethan. I don't believe in coincidences, said Ashley. I believe the right people appear at the right time when we are ready to recognize their blessings. Even when those people test us cruelly? Asked Ethan. Especially then, replied Ashley, because those are the moments that show us what we're truly made of. Ethan kissed her gently. I love you, Ashley Wellington. I love you too, Ethan, she replied, and I love the family we've built together. Beatrice approached the 2. May I interrupt this romantic moment? Of course, Mom, said Ethan. Ashley, I want to give you something, said Beatrice, taking a small box from her pocket. What is it? Asked Ashley. Open it and see, said Beatrice. Ashley opened the box and found an antique ring with a small inscription. It's my grandmother's engagement ring, explained Beatrice. She always said it should be passed down to the woman who brought the most love to our family. Ashley was moved. Mrs. Wellington, I can't accept this. You can, and you will, insisted Beatrice. You've brought more love to this family than any of us ever imagined possible. "Read the inscription," said Ethan. Ashley looked at the ring and read aloud, "True love transforms hearts." "My grandmother was right," said Beatrice. "You transformed my heart, Ashley." The three hugged, and in that moment, Ashley knew she had found not only the love of her life, but also the family she had always dreamed of having. 5 years after the wedding, the Hope Foundation had become a national reference. Ashley had been invited to speak at several universities about social entrepreneurship. One day, while visiting one of the foundation's locations, she was approached by a young woman who had just given birth. "Mrs. Ashley, may I speak with you?" the young woman asked timidly. "Of course, dear. What's your name?" asked Ashley. "Brianna, I have nowhere to leave my baby so I can work," said the young woman with tears in her eyes. "Don't worry," said Ashley, smiling. "That's exactly what we're here for." "But I can't afford to pay," said Brianna. "Brianna, do you know the story of how this foundation started?" asked Ashley. "No, Ma'am," replied the young woman. "It started on my wedding day when I was cleaning a bathroom," said Ashley. "I was being humiliated, but I didn't know that experience would lead me to build something that would change the lives of hundreds of women." "How so?" asked Brianna. "Sometimes our worst moments prepare us for our greatest triumphs," explained Ashley. "You're going through a difficult time now, but that doesn't define who you can become." Brianna listened carefully, absorbing every word. "The foundation will take care of your baby, give you professional training and help you find a job," said Ashley. "The only thing we ask in return is that when you get back on your feet, you help another woman in the same situation you're in today." "I promise," said Brianna, moved. "And Brianna," said Ashley, "never let anyone make you feel that you're worth less because of your circumstances. Your worth isn't in where you came from, but in where you're going." 2 years later, Brianna had graduated from nursing school and become a volunteer at the foundation, helping other women in situations similar to what she had experienced. On Brianna's graduation day, Ashley was in the audience next to Ethan and Beatrice. The three had become a close-knit family, working together to transform lives. "Do you regret anything?" Ethan asked Ashley during the ceremony. "What?" she asked. "Giving up your original career to marry me," he said. "Ethan, leaving that career brought me to this one," replied Ashley. "And this career allows me to help far more people than the previous one ever could." "And you, Mother?" Ethan turned to Beatrice. "Do you regret how you tested Ashley?" Beatrice thought for a moment. "I regret the way I did it, but I don't regret the outcome. If all that hadn't happened, we might never have discovered Ashley's true strength." "You two are impossible," said Ethan, laughing. "We're a family," said Ashley, "and families grow together through challenges." When Brianna took the stage to receive her diploma, she especially thanked Ashley. "Mrs. Ashley taught me that it doesn't matter where we start, but where we decide to go," Brianna said into the microphone. "She transformed my life, and now it's my turn to transform the lives of other women." The audience applauded, and Ashley felt her heart fill with pride and gratification. "You know what the best part of all this is?" whispered Beatrice to Ashley. "What?" asked Ashley. "It's that every life you transform multiplies the impact," said Beatrice. "Brianna will help other women, who will help others, and so on." "It's the domino effect of good," agreed Ashley. "Exactly," said Beatrice. "And it all started with a bride cleaning a bathroom." The two laughed, remembering how that terrible day had turned into the start of something wonderful. Years later, when Ashley was already a national reference in social entrepreneurship, she often told her story in lectures. She always ended with the same message. "Our greatest challenges aren't obstacles to our dreams," she would say. "They're the preparation for them." And so, the woman who was once humiliated for cleaning a bathroom became an inspiration for thousands of other women across the country, proving that with determination, forgiveness, and love, any story can have a transformative ending. End of story. What did you think of this story of overcoming and forgiveness? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Do you think Ashley made the right decision by forgiving Beatrice? And Brianna, do you know any similar stories? Leave your opinion below. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more moving stories like this one.